Welcome back guys to our second tutorial video for Python. Your host is Rex the Coder, and I do hope you enjoyed the very first introductory video released last week Monday. In this video we're just gonna continue, right? We're gonna continue building the syntax, right? In the previous video I mentioned the script mode. That is something that we're going to be covering in this tutorial, right? I said we're going to cover it next week, which is this week, right? I will give you the introduction to script mode, and yeah, I will introduce you to the tool that I use to code. It's Vim. Then let me just mention that there's lots of ways to code via writing a script, a Python script. You can either use an IDE. There are lots of IDEs. You can choose one of your preference. Among them, there's VS Code, there's PyCharm from JetBrains, I believe. So there are lots of IDEs you can use. For the online guys, well, what else? I do have an online tool that you're going to use, not mine by the way, but it's a free tool that exists there online, because the internet has lots and lots of things you can use to get started. So you don't really need to have the IDEs I just mentioned. You can just get started. And then we'll talk about operators. I did mention some, I think it was just one when we assigning a variable, right? Because we needed it so that we can assign a value to a variable. Then we'll talk about conditional statements. So you will see some of these operators being used to create conditions for certain statements to execute, right? Cool. Let's get started, right? Introduction to the script mode. In this mode of Python is you create a file, right? So this is just a simple start. So basically you create a file. So you're going to create a file, right? Name it whatever that you want to name it. Then you're going to give it an extension py. That's what I want to talk about. So whenever you create a file, you give it an extension, right? If it's a PDF, it's a PDF document, right? So it's going to be .pdf. If you want to create a file which is a Python script, or it's a Python file, it has to end with .py, right? Py is short for Python. That makes sense. Cool. So let's go ahead and create a Python file. Okay, no, let's first discuss the concepts. Then we'll go and create a file and then write some code. Then what we're going to do is we'll do the same thing, not really the same thing, but we'll also introduce the online editor that you can use, right? Or rather, let me just do it now. Okay, let's just do it now. Cool. Let me just go to my terminal. As I mentioned, I am a guy that loves terminal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a file. I'm going to create a directory for this tutorial. So it's mkdir, let's name this tutorial Python, and then let's name it YouTube, right? YouTube, there we go. And then cd Python YouTube, right? We're in this directory, and then we have nothing as of yet, right? Don't be confused for what you're seeing. This is just a way that I love doing things. I am a terminal guy. That's why I also prefer coding on Vim, which we're gonna just do now, right? But what we're gonna do now is just create a Python script, right? So if I am on Vim, I will just use Vim, and then I say x.py. It's just an example, so you can name it anything, right? So it's your file name. It's your file name, and then it's gonna be, so this is your file name dot and then py, right? And then cool, then this is my Vim, and then what I want to do is just print hello. So that's print hello. So you are familiar with the print statement by now from the previous tutorial. Cool. So exit VM is just colon, and then W is for writing, Q is for quitting. So if we just do W, it's gonna write, right? The file is written, it's 15 bytes, right? But then if you want to quit, you can just write and quit, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is just open a new tab. Then if I type ls, it lists all the files that I have. So you see why I love terminal. I get to see the files that I have. But then when I'm working on a big project, it's not that easy to manage my project using Vim. You can, but it makes life extremely difficult. So Vim, I use it just to master my concepts when I'm learning and exploring. But then when I'm working on a big project, I use an IDE. So the IDE that I use is VS Code, which has proved to be one of the best IDEs that I've used. But then you can choose any IDE of your choosing. It doesn't matter which IDE you're using, as long as you're able to accomplish your work, complete your projects, because the aim of using an IDE is so that you can complete your work, right? Cool. So execute a Python script, right? In an IDE, basically you're just gonna write. I'm gonna show you when we go to the online tool that we're gonna use. So we just use Python 3, right? And then the name of the file. So if I press tab, it's gonna autocomplete because it knows that that's the only file that exists in this directory. And then I execute, and then it prints hello. That's script mode. So you first create a file where you're gonna write the code, then you execute using Python 3. It's using Python 3. This is the format of executing your file, right? So this is the Python 3 interpreter, right? Then you wanna interpret this code. You wanna interpret this Python script, by the way, not the code. Interpret this Python script which has a code inside, which is just a simple print line. Hello, right? Cool. Now what I'm going to show you is how to do this same thing online, and I'm going to show you this other tool that you can use. Instead of just coding on the script that they have, you can upload your own script with your own code. So say for instance you're coding on a computer that doesn't have any Python, right? You can write your code on terminal, and then you go online, and then you upload that code online just so that you can execute it. I will show you. So let's head over to our browser. So is the online tool. What you're gonna do is jdo.com, right? Let's give it time to load. So there we go. So we got it. So what you see here is all the languages that they have, right? But what we want to use is the Python 3 interpreter, right? So we're gonna start Python 3 interpreter. Cool. And then this is where you're going to be coding. As you see, there's a bit of an example code there, and then this is the version, right? Remember I mentioned that my version is Python 3.11.0 b3, right? It's still a beta version because they're still adding features to it, right? It's not yet an official or a stable release, but I'm using it either way because I love exploring. But then I did mention you can use anything, right? From the site I showed you, it was Python 3.10.5, which was the latest version. But in this one, I'm just going to use 3.99, right? That's the latest that they have for this one. But what you want to do is, if you prefer this, you can just use this, but it's better to just go in the full mode. Then this is a proper interface, right? Because this is where you write your code, and then this is where you execute. I will show you, I will explain, we'll get to the part where we get to the inputs. I did show you the input function before, and then I did show you the command line arguments, right? Actually for this one, let's go with the input since we just used the output there, just to also refresh our concepts, right? I'm just gonna clear what code they have there, and then I have name. You are familiar with this, right? What is your name? So we're just gonna write a simple program that has the name and the age. I did cover that as well from the previous one, so if you are confused, just go back to that. There we go. So we're just gonna ask the name and the age, and then we're gonna print. Okay, let's just give them a warm welcome name. Let's use this welcome name. You did remember we were exploring as well as to that you can put as many arguments, as many parameters, as many arguments as you want on this. This is a function which you pass arguments because it supports multiple parameters, right? So that's name. You don't need to have a space there. It's gonna automatically add a space. That's name. Say your age is yeah, let's just execute. So in this case, you don't have to type Python 3, call the interpreter, then the file is just gonna execute on your behalf. And then as you see, this is what happens, but it's gonna give you an error. So in this IDE or in this editor, which I'm actually using for the first time, I've never used it before, I only heard of the online tool that you can use. You will see this section, right? It's input. So what you're gonna do there is input the input, right? Say Morex the coder, right? That's the name, that is the string, that's the first line. The second line is for the second input. If I just execute this as it is, what you're gonna see is you're gonna see the first part is gone, the name is sorted, but it doesn't know about the age now. So I have to add the age. Let's add 60, then we execute. There we go. So we have what is your name, what is your age, and then it welcomes me on the same line. So what I want to do is just go there and then I just print line. Cool. So it's gonna add a line, and then I go there. Add line, and then yeah, we should be having a nice output now. The other thing you can do is you can also adjust this so that you have a proper view. This side you can't. Okay, cool. But that's my output. So what is your name, right? It gave me the name. What is your age? It gave me the age, store the age, and then welcome, Marix the coder, your age is this. Now, what you see here, it's something that is gonna come in handy when we start using the testing framework. Either we're gonna use the PyTest or the unit test. This is gonna come in handy to understand that, because this is how the testing works. So you simulate the input, right? What you're gonna do is what you're testing is testing whether your code is behaving the way it's supposed to behave. So for instance, in this case, you want the name, right? Does it prompt the user to input the name in the right format? So you're gonna have a format for the name, for the age, and then you have the message that is printed. So you're gonna capture that message or whatever text that is outputted or displayed on the screen to see if it's in the format that you want and it has everything that needs to be there. But what else, we'll talk about that when we get to the advanced part. We'll talk about testing and all that. For now, this is just the basics. So cool. So this is the online tool. If you were to run our program on our that we have, we just upload, right? So I'm gonna upload. No, I'm not gonna upload. What I'm gonna do is, this is where we are. So what I'm gonna do is I am gonna clear this project, right? The project is cleared. Then I am gonna do this. Let's see. So I'm gonna open from a local file. Yeah, that's the option. So you're gonna open from a local file, and then I'm gonna go to documents, YouTube. That's the folder I created, and this is the file we created with only print, right? We're gonna open the file. There we go. That's our file. We execute it. It just have to give us hello. That's it. So we can also do the same thing on our script mode or on our film. So let's get started. So name, input. I'm not gonna repeat the one we had. We're just gonna do something simple. Int input, and then it's age. Cool. And then we're just gonna print. So let's do print. So welcome, name of age. I don't have to put a space, remember. There we go. So save this file, right? So let's execute this file first on this side and that side, right? If I run this, and then now it's gonna give me a name, right? I say Morex, and then age is 30, right? And then this is how it executes. So normally the code we wrote before on the other side, right? The other side works a bit different. So you have to know how your tool works before you start using it, right? So in this case, since we are running it on our PC where we already have a Python 3 interpreter, right? It's normally gonna run like this: ask you the name, and then you provide the name, age, and then you provide the age, and then it runs. On our online editor or online interpreter, what's happening is that you provide the input that are supposed to be given before you execute. So the online tool can be a bit limited if, for instance, your second or you are at a certain point, you have to input something depending on the information that is already being inputted, right? So it doesn't allow you to do that because it wants you to input everything that needs to be inputted before you get to that line. You can actually do it, but then it's a bit way complicated. So that's why down the line you might have to get yourself Python 3. But there are other editors as well, so don't be limited to just the one. The one I'm using now online is that one. I would share some options for text editors on the link below, no, on the description below, I meant. So yeah, that's basically it. So enough with my terminal, enough with my Vim. I'm just gonna be using the tool that we have online. It's a good tool. As I mentioned, I just love exploring, so I just want to get to learn this new tool as I'm coding. Cool. So let's close this. We don't need this. Yes, you can close. Cool. So what I want to do now is I want to open a file from a local machine. There we are. So I'm gonna open this file, and this is what we have, right? Let's execute this code. You see, it gives us an error because with this one you have to first provide all the input that are required in your code. So it's Morex, then it's 30, then I execute. It gives you the input, but then this input is a bit messed up because there's no spaces, all that. So if you want to create a new line, you just do this. That's a new line. That's a new line. So basically printing an empty string, by the way. You're printing nothing. So it prints nothing, then it goes to the next line, right? If I execute this, now you have a nice proper code, right? That's it. So this is what you're going to be testing for when you get to the testing side. So this compiler does give you a bit of an idea in terms of the testing side, but obviously for now you're not actually thinking about testing. You're just running your program, right? Cool. So yeah, we'll get to the command line arguments, not now, and I'll show you also on the other side as to how it works. But for this tutorial going forward, I'm gonna be using this. You can use your IDE. It doesn't matter because you just want to follow through what's being done, right? So you're not actually following through how to use. You're not learning the IDE, but learning the concepts, right? And then you can format your code however you want to format it, right? Cool. Now let's go back to our presentation and cool. We have discussed about this and this and this. Now let's go back. Let's go to a new topic, right? We're gonna talk about operators, and we have quite a number of them. So I will cover a few, and then we'll just apply others during the code. Cool. So the first type, let's talk about the types of operators that we have, right? So we have arithmetic operators. So these are the operators that are related to mathematics. You might be guessing it right: add, division, subtraction, all that. So those are the operators we're going to be discussing. Then we'll talk about the comparison operators. So these operators connect to the data type that we discussed in the previous tutorial. Just like with arithmetic, right? We're dealing with numbers. So that arithmetic operators connects to numeric data type. Comparison operators connect to Boolean data type because you're comparing two things, right? If you compare 1 and 2 and you say if 1 is greater than 2, obviously it's not true, right? So that's false. But if you say 2 is greater than 1, then that's true. So that's what's gonna be happening. And then after that, we'll apply these comparison operators inside an if statement, right? It's a condition. We'll get to that. So let's discuss about the arithmetic operators. So we have addition, as I mentioned. It's just adding, right? It's a plus sign, and that's the sign that you're going to use in your code. And then you have subtraction. So subtraction is just subtracting, right? So you have subtraction, you're just gonna subtract. So that's the sign, minus sign. And then we have division, which is divided into two categories. So that's where things get to be a little bit different now. You know division, you're dividing, right? But there's two categories of this division. You have a float division. It's just one slash, right? And then you have an integer division, or mostly known as a floor division, right? This is double slash. So the difference is that the float division connects to one of the numeric type, which is a float type. So it's division that can result with a decimal. Integer division only brings or only results in integer type. So you will always get a number without a decimal with integer division, regardless of whether you're dividing a number. You're dividing by a number that doesn't fully go into the number that you're dividing. And then we have multiplication. The same thing is an asterisk. So mostly you guys are used to an x, but then in Python, that's your multiplication. So an asterisk is a multiplication. And then we have exponentiation. So an exponentiation is double asterisks. Asterisks. this word is quite tricky, but then it's asterisk and asterisk, right? It's two asterisks, right? Last but not least, you have a modulus, which is a percentage sign. So what this one does is that when you divide a number, right, it, instead of returning the result of those numbers, it returns the remainder. So say for instance you're dividing 3 by 2, right? So if you divide 3 by 2, 2 doesn't go to 3 completely. It goes once and leaves what? 1. So you will get that remainder. Exponentiation, you're just raising a number into a power. So if I say 2 to a power of 2, that will give you 4, right? So you're raising a number to a power. That's that operator. I will show you how to use that. Multiplication, just multiplying two numbers. Division, I've explained both of them, and then subtraction and multiplication, right? So now let's go and just explore these operators, right? So we'll use our 2 and we're gonna exit that, right? So in Python, if you want to comment or if you want to add a comment, right, you use something. So this is the format of the comment. It's a pound sign. Is it a pound? Hashtag. Oh yeah, hashtag. So what we're going to do is addition, right? Addition, and then we're going to do subtraction, and then we're gonna do multiplication. Then we have division. So let's just say float division, since there's 2 types. Then we have float division or integer division, as I mentioned in my slides. Division. Then we have okay, we did a multiplication, so it's exponentiation. Exponentiation. I hope I read it right. So exponents. Let's just exponent. Yeah. And then last but not least is going to be the modulus. Cool. So this is addition, right? So say you have a number, right? Num1. Remember the rules of naming the variable. I'm not going to repeat that. So it's num1. Say you have 20, right? And then you have num2. It's 30, right? And then you want to print the sum, right? So using what you learned from the previous video, you will say you can just use this if you did practice all those things. So it's num sum of, and then it's gonna be num1 and num2, right? This is just you want to display that this is the sum of num1, num2, but then this has to be a string. If you remember from the previous video, a string, and then it's a string, right? Then you will have is, and then that's that, but we need a little bit of space there. And then we provide str, and then it's num1, but we want to add these two, so it's okay, let's just press enter so that our code doesn't go far. And then we have num2, so we can just do this and go there. So this is our code. That's why I say num2. Oh, rather, let's just make it simple, complicate it by doing this. So to get the sum, all you do is just num1 plus num2. Now this makes sense. So this is how you use the operator, same way you've used it in math, but now when I want to display that, I want to use str, then it's sum, right? Then let's execute this. So sum of 20 and 30 is 50, right? Let me see something. I might be messing up somehow, because I think this should work. Let's test it out. Yeah, it should work. I was confusing this with Java because I just recently did a Java tutorial, but yeah, my apologies for that. So it does work because you're just providing a value, right? It's a value, as I've discussed in the previous video. I'm sure someone would have said, if it was a live session or a live class, that But you showed me that you could just have to provide the value. It doesn't matter the data type, because I remember when I was explaining the print function that you provide the value, right? So the value can come in different forms. It can be a string, it can be an integer, a float, or a boolean, right? Cool. So that's addition. Subtraction is gonna be the same thing. I'm sure you're gonna do that. So let's leave this for you to do. So pause the video and then you do that, right? Cool. I'm sure you will get the answer. I mean, if for instance you have num1 and num2, you can just still use these two because these variables exist in this code. You can just use that or create new variables, right? Also multiplication, you can do that to do, right? You can do that. So that's your homework or that's your classwork, right? As you learn, because you learn by trying. You don't just learn by just watching a video and continuously, and you get to be tricked into thinking that you know why you don't know. So it's better to learn and learn and learn, right? So this is how you learn, right? So what I will discuss is the float division. So we have these two numbers, right? 20 and 30, right? Say I want to divide num2 with num1, so it's going to be 30 divided by 20. So what I do is div, so it's just a short for division, and then I want to do num2 divided by num1. So that's how you use the operator as well. So it's not so different from the other one. It's the same thing. It's the operator, right? You divide, and then what you want to do is display. I'm just gonna copy this and paste it there just to make the video not too long, and then I'm just gonna edit. So it's division of num2 by num1. Your statements have to make sense by yeah, so it's this divided by that is, and then I provide div. So if we run this, there we go. So we have div of 30 by 30. Oh, because num2 supposed to be num1, sorry. Cool, there we go. So sum of 20 and 30, that's our first line. It provided 50. Now division of num2 by num1 is 1.5. So 20, right, goes to 30 how many times? It goes there twice. No, it goes there once and it leaves what? 10, right? So that's half. Well, like, okay, let's not go to mathematics too much, but then it goes there 1.5, it goes there 1.5, right? It's 1.5. Cool. Now let's do the same division of the same numbers but with the floor division. But then just a quick question before we get there. So if we're dividing num2 by num1 and it gives us 1.5, if we divide num2 by num1 but using the integer division or the floor division, which only results in one integer, one whole number, will the result be 1 or 2? So answer that, keep that with you, right? And then as we go along, you will see, and then you will also have an understanding or the proper what's the word, the proper way of seeing things or how things will play out, because you see in coding, right, you don't get to learn or know everything. Some of the things you develop through your curiosity, that okay, what happens if I do this, what happens if I do this. I did mention this in the previous video as well, but then let's go to this one. So this is going to be div2, it's of type 2, right, floor division, and then the same thing, num2 divided by num1, right? And then we're just going to use this So it's copy, so it's Control C and then Control V to paste, right? Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna just use div2, right? Then let's run this code and see what happens. So this gives us that because this is still the same division. Now we have to add that 1/. So how many of you got this right? Did you get 1 or did you get 2? Because if you're a mathematician, you would have said, oh, this is 5, so I can round this to 2. So what this float division does is it doesn't round up. It doesn't round up. It takes or it disregards the decimal part. So it only takes everything before the decimal it takes. So that's the result all the time. It doesn't round up at all. Cool. So that is division. Now let's discuss exponent, right? So the example we made is 2 to the power of something. Let's just say num is equals to 2. So we don't have num there, right? Cool. Now I want to raise this to a power of an exponent, right? So let's have a print statement. Let's just have this a bit up. Cool. Just a presenter so that you can get a nice view note at the bottom, and then you can just say num to the power of 2 is, so we're going to round it up to the power of 2, right? So you can just do it directly upon calling the function. So it's num and then it's asterisk asterisk and then it's 2, right? So what you're expecting is 4, right? So if you execute this, let's see what we get. So it's 2 to the power of 2 is 4. So that's correct. So this is how you use num. So if you wanted to just save it in a variable, you could just do that, and then this is 2 to the power of 2, and then there, instead of using that or creating the operation itself, it's x, right? And then you run this, that's what you get. Does that make sense? We did multiplication, so it's modulus that is left. Control Z. Okay, let's just select this and then we delete. Then we're gonna do that. Cool. Now let's use the same numbers, right? div1 by div2, right? But then this time around we're gonna get the remainder, right? So print, so num2, okay, let's do this. The remainder, I was trying to get the right message. The remainder of num2 divided by, and then it's num1 is, and then we just do num2 and then percentage and then num1. So this has to give us the remainder. Let's test it out and see. So it gives us 10, so it's half. That half is referring to its half, right? It's half. Cool. And that's cool because that's the remainder, right? So you divide 30 by 2, it goes there once, it leaves half, so it leaves 10, which is its half, right? That's that. So that's the operators. Do take your time to play around with them so that you can advance them and create or um, evolve yourself to a point where you'll be able to do this easily and as simple as possible, right? So you have to master these concepts and be able to use them, because you're gonna have a code or a program that is big, that is gonna require you to apply a deep understanding of these languages, or these concepts rather, not the languages, this concept, right? Let's go back to our slides. We did cover that. Two more slides. Cool. So let's go to the last ones. So what you have is you have assignment operator, right? So this one is just an equal sign, so it assigns a value to a variable that we did discuss last week. So it assigns a value to a variable. It is called an assignment operator. Cool. Now let's talk about the comparison operator. I will show you the different forms that can be created using the combination of assignment operator and mathematical operators, right? Let's just discuss these two slides and then I will show you. Cool. Comparison operators, right? So we have equal to, so it's an equal sign, right? One would think that this is going to be something like this, but that's not the case. So the equal sign in Python is double equal. So the single equal is an assignment operator, but when you add another equal sign, the operator becomes an equal operator and not the assignment operator, right? Not equal, it's gonna be an exclamation mark followed by an equal sign, so it's not equal. And then we talk about greater than. So this one you already know is just that greater than sign, and then less than is less than sign. So you can combine these with an assignment operator as well. So greater than or equal to, so you just add equal there, and then the sign becomes greater than or equal to or less than equals to. We're going to explore this just now. So let's head over to the last slide, which is the condition. So the reason why I'm also discussing this is because we're going to be applying the comparison operators with if statement. So we're going to be using all these operators with the if statement. So the format or the syntax of an if statement is you start with the keyword if, so it's more like English, if, and then you have a condition. So this is the first condition. So this if statement that I'm going to give you here is not a partial if statement, it's a complete if statement. You have an if condition. If not, you can create another condition, then another condition. If all the conditions are not met, then you're going to have one that is supposed to be executed. I will show you everything. So if, then you have condition one, that's the first condition, and then you're going to follow it by a colon. And then now that's where we introduce another concept called indentation. So if you check, this is not properly indented, but then this block is supposed to be aligned with this if, and then you're going to have spaces inside there. So the length of these spaces, right? So for instance, if you are using a tab, it will be 4 lines. There's a tab, right? It tabs for 4 lines, I believe. So indenting means that you want this condition to run a certain number of statements, right? I will show you, it's gonna be easier or easy to follow when I do the example, but indentation is what Python uses to know which block of code belongs to this condition. So you're going to just run statements that you're going to be executed inside this if statement of yours. If you have another condition, you will include an elif statement. So else if, and that's what this statement say, else if. So else if this condition is not met, else if, and then you want to check this condition, then you have the second condition. Format is the same, you have a column, then you have a for space, right? Keep your indentation consistent, but there's no rule as to whether you have to have 4 or 2, can either just have one. I will show you when we get to the code. Then you have your statement, right? If all the conditions are not met, this is just going to be an else, and then you're going to have indentation as well, and then your statements, right? So this is the complete if statement. If you have 5 conditions, it's going to be if, then you will have else if condition 2, else if condition 3, else if condition 4, until you exhausted all your conditions, and then you have that one condition that your code shouldn't run if that condition is met, which is just going to be else. I hope that does make sense, but nevertheless, we are heading over to the coding side. I do believe the slides are gone. Yeah, the slides are done. So we discussed assignment operator, and then we discussed the equal, not equal, the comparison operators, right? So now let's put them into action. So I'm going to clear the whole code, and then we start from scratch. Or you can also clear this. I think, yeah, it does allow you to also clear the output. So you saw that I always clear my terminal, right, just to keep things simple and easy. That's what I did there as well. So the assignment operator, it's assigning a value to a variable, right? But now what I want to talk about is combining it with the operators we just discussed now, the arithmetic operators, not the comparison one. I will get to discuss the comparison, then we combine them with an assignment operator as well. Take a deep breath, relax, and don't feel like things are gonna get hectic. I know code gets to be like this, but if you're willing to learn, just keep a calm mind and know that you're not gonna always get it the first time. You're gonna have to do a bit of reading using the site. I did refer you to David Course from my previous video, which is a great site to use when you want to learn. So what you're going to do is so you have addition, subtraction, and all that, right? So say you have two numbers, 30, or let's just use what we had before, 20. Right, don't worry about the space. This is just you properly organizing your code, but then let's just keep it nice and simple like that, right? So if you want to add, right, you could just do this, right? So it's num1 plus equals num2. So this is your sum. What this does is that it's saying that num1, remember when I said that your variables can be overridden, you are overriding the value that is in num1 with the summation of its value plus another number. So it's num1 equals to num1 plus num2. That's what this says. So if we were to print num1, it will give us 50. There we go, it will give us 50. So this is a short cut for adding. If you're adding a variable with another number, or you want to add another value of the same type, obviously, but then mostly this is a mathematical operation. Let me just put it that way, because strings do work in more or less the same way. We'll get to also discuss that a bit later, but this is what's happening, right? So you will need this at a certain condition. Say you want to run, so when we discuss about loops, that's where this guy is going to come in handy. You can either do it that way or do it this way, but it's easier to just do it this way, because you see that your code gets to be clean and simple without having to write all that, right? Cool. So if it's a division, it's the same thing. You will just do this, right? And then if you run that, is that. Let's check if it does work for the float division. Just as I've said, it's all about exploring. Don't be afraid to explore. And it works because this is an arithmetic operator that you have, and an assignment. So what you're doing is you're dividing these two and assign the value or the result to that variable, which is called an operand. If you're discussing about an operator, you have an operand to the left and an operand to the right. So this is a binary operation that we're doing right now. We have two operands, right? Cool. Multiplication is the same thing, and I do hope you guys did manage to do the multiplication, or you're going to do it after the video. And then this is the multiplication. I do hope that that made sense. If not, just break it down, because what this means, right? This means this. It's num1 multiplied by num2. You're going to act as if that one is not there. So it's num1 multiplied by num2. This is this part. So this is where it's starting, right? Num1 multiplied by num2. But now you want to assign the result to that num1 without creating a different variable. And that way you're just going to do this assignment. So what this does, it says num1 is assigned this. So instead of writing that variable again and assign, we just assign there after the multiplication. I hope this one does make sense. But now let's introduce the new operators, and then we're going to introduce the assignment operator being added with the new operators, right? So what we have is we have the equal sign, right? So we have equal, and then you will see why I said it's related to the Boolean data type, which is just true or false. And then you have not equal, and then you have greater, and then you have less than, right? There we go. So what we're going to do is we have numbers, right? So let's just use a print statement for this one to see what happens. If I have 1 and I say it's equal to 3, is this going to be true or false? This is the operator we just learned. It's equal, so it's double equal signs. If 1, so is this equals to 3? It's no, right? So it should be false. So it gives you false, right? So the result of an comparison operator always results in a Boolean type. You can also store this in a type in a variable, and that variable is going to be of Boolean data type. If I say 1 is equals to 1 or 3 is equals to 3, right, that should give me true, which is correct, right? And then we move to this one. It's print, and then I say 6 is not equal to 5, which is true, right? Which is true. And then let's get over to the greater than. So the greater than is the same thing. So it's print. I'm just going to do the greater than, and then you do the less than. So is 7 greater than 10? No. So it should be false. And then what if we say 7 is greater than 7? It's false, right? But then if you look at this format of these operators, is not equal, it's equal, right? So what happens if I say greater and then I append equal? Will this change or will this remain false? Let's test it out. It changes to true. Why? Because your operator now is not just greater than, is greater than or equals to. Now you see how you get to combine the assignment operator with the other operators. It makes sense, right? Try it for the less than, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to discuss the last concept, or the last part, which is the conditional statements. This part is a bit confusing and it's a bit not really tough, but it's not that complicated. Okay, say we have three conditions, right? So we have condition number one, who? Condition number one. So we're going to do an example, right? Condition number one, check if number is divisible by 2. And then we have the second condition, check if number is divisible by 3. Let's just do 4 conditions. So this is just covering everything, right? So that's 2, that's 3. Number is divisible by 4. And then you have condition 4. Number is divisible by 5 or 6, right? Let's just put it that way. So these are the conditions that we have, right? So we're going to write our program based on this, but we're going to apply everything we learned also from the previous tutorial. As I've mentioned, that consistency is everything, so you must be able to be consistent, to always be on guard in terms of your in terms of learning your concepts, because you need to have your concepts with you at all times. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this thing down. So we're going to start by getting the user input, right? Get input, right? So let's get the input. So basically this is more or less how one could start to code. So basically you start by creating the conditions that are supposed to be done. So when you get to the functions, we'll be using a bit of more for doc strings to discuss or to describe what our function is going to do. So for this one, we get the input, right? So let's say it's number, and then we just use that, convert that to an integer, then it's input, and then we say enter a number. Cool. And that's what we're getting, a number, right? Then we're going to have a statement, right? So the first statement says that this is divisible by 2. So if I say if, and then I have number, right? This number, and then I divide that by 2. But now in order for me to say that a number is divisible by 2, that means that each and every time I divide this number by 2, there's nothing that is remaining on that number. So which operator do you use? Do you see how it gets too advanced in terms of application? So you have all the concepts, you know your concepts, but now you have to understand how do you apply those concepts, where do they apply? So in this case, you can't use a division, either the floor or the float division, because it won't give you what you want. You can try to manipulate it, but then the method you can use, or the operator that you can use, is the one that gives you the remainder. Unless if you can manipulate your ways to get the remainder from this, which is just a bit too much, and you might end up having a code that you can't even understand yourself. So to keep it simple, use a modulus operator that gives you the remainder. So before you solve a problem, you get to have a bit of analyzation, that which method am I going to use on this problem? Which method am I going to use on this problem? So in this problem, modulus makes your life easy to use. So you use the modular sign, right? So this is divided by 2, but now this has to be a boolean, right? This has to be a boolean. So if this is divisible by this, the remainder should be 0, right? So this has to be equals to 0. You heard what I said, equals to 0, not assigning to 0. Equals to 0. It's an comparison operator. It has to say equals to 0. So the way you use your English when you talk, use that while transferring or converting that English into Python language, which leads us to that. And then you have a semicolon, right? That's how we discussed it. Then what you're gonna do is just print is even. So it's divisible by 2. Let's just use that way. So I don't want to confuse those who are not mathematicians who don't know much about maths, but that's how you do it, right? Then you have the third condition. So with this third condition, it's the same thing, but now remember the format is elif, and then you have a condition, right? So number is divisible by 3, the remainder is 0, right? Then we have print number. Oh, that's one other thing. You don't have to put it in quotes, right? Because you want to print that value, and then you want to say is divisible by 3. Cool. So that's your condition. Third condition is the same thing. Fourth condition is the same thing. So let's leave this for you guys to do. But now we wanna close our commands. For instance, if it's not divisible by 2, 3, or 4, then there should be one that covers everything, which is an else. That, and then you see how my Kaiser is. So remember that block, those big blocks we had, that's the indentation. So it shows that your code is executing. This is what you want to execute. I will just show you in a moment, once we're done with this, what happens if you don't execute. So if you don't indent, so this is print so let's say number not divisible by 2, 3, or 4. So in this case, this is what we have, or 2 or 3 in our case. Why? Because we only added those options. So in your case, it's going to be something different. It's either 2, 3, or 4, or 6, right? It's not divisible by 2, 3, 4, or 6, right? So if you run this program, if you remember, right, you have to provide the input. So say I provide 1, and then let's execute this. When you execute this number is not divisible by 1 or 2. So to make this much nicer, after the input, let's just put a print so that our results will be printed on the next line. 1 is not divisible by 2 or 3, right? That's the problem that you did. If I was to say the input is 2, I'm expecting it to be divisible by 2. Number is divisible by 2. If I was to put 3 as well, number is divisible by 3. Cool. I hope this did make sense, and that brings us to the end of the conditional statements. Practice this, as I mentioned, practice and practice and practice. It takes time to grasp all these concepts, but with consistency in terms of practicing your concepts, it gets easy for you to understand. Hopefully this is making sense to someone, and you will do what you need to do and learn and practice and understand, right? Cool. So And that's it from me. Oh, I said I'm gonna show you guys the indentation. I did discuss the indentation, but I never really showed you guys. So so I just have an if statement, and then the condition results to true. Let's just say that way. It results to true, right? And then I come here and then I say print. Yes, right. If I run this, I will run into a problem. Why? Because this line is not part of this. So this is standing on its own, and inside there we have an if statement that is empty. And then you see the error that is given there, expected an indented block. So this is the indentation error that you get. If you recall from a previous video, I did show you the type of errors you get, a value error from the Python shell. So these are the errors that you get. So the Python shell gives you the error right from the start. So if we go back to that python.org/then shell, shell, gonna write the same code, right? Using what we had previously, using this shell. It's gonna start there we go. So this is 3.9.5, this is 3.9.9, but what less about the versions I've said. So if I say if is true, right, and then I press enter, right, this thing is not yet indented, and then I just type print yes or yesi, whatever. That's what we get. So this is how the error looks like on your shell. So if you continue using shell, this is how it looks like. If you're using the editor, this is how it looks like. But then if I have this, right, this is an if, and then I have a shell, and then I press tab, right, and then I put in print and then I just type whatever that I'm typing there, and then I press enter. Then I'm done, right? When you're done writing your statements, you just press enter again, and then this is what's going to be printed. So you see, you don't have to have 4 lines. You can just use a tab for 4 lines, or you use a space. So in this case, if we come here, if I just put space, then I execute, then our program will run. Yes, that's the indentation. That's the part that many people tend to not understand. Python discovers or separates a block of code using indentation. Indentation is just the spacing, right? It's the spacing that you have. Once you define something and you have a semicolon, you must define a block of code that is going to run within that. You will also see that when you do functions. So on the summary of this tutorial, did you see how we moved from the previous tutorial to this tutorial, and the concepts we learned from the previous tutorial, and use them along with the new concepts? So this language, or the language, keeps on building and building and building. If you don't get to do your part in terms of learning the concepts from the previous tutorial and fully master them, you will have, or you might have had, difficulties in terms of fully grasping the new concepts and applying what you know before in this tutorial, which is why I advise using a terminal, because you see this, it doesn't give you the suggestions. So a terminal can give you suggestions. If not, you can install extensions that allows you, or that allows auto suggestion, but it only blinds you from seeing the truth, because you will think you know a language while the IDE is doing 90% of what you're supposed to be doing. Does that make sense? Cool. And that brings us to the end of this tutorial. I do believe that you guys love this tutorial, and yeah, do hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you are enjoying this tutorial series, so that you don't miss out. Every Monday 12 a.m. new episode or new video will be released for Python. Until then, I shall see you next week Monday. Enjoy.